day's a day, a bad luck's always a coming my way.
Welcome to Savannah, Georgia, our old stomping grounds. In fact, this square that we're standing in right now, this is where we got married. It's a very special place to us. Savannah has creepy churches, beyond beautiful historical houses pretty much on every corner. You can pretty much find Spanish moss in every single tree here. Just remember, don't touch it. There's little critters that live up inside it. You can take a bus tour throughout the different squares here in Savannah during the day. It's like a historical tour, and at nighttime, it turns into a ghost tour. So there's something for everybody. Now here's the thing. We only have a few hours here in Savannah, and to us, the creepiest, the strangest, the weirdest thing that you could do in this entire town is not anything to do with the ghosts. It's a little museum down on Riverwalk called the Graveface Museum.
Hello, my name is Chloe, and my husband and I run the Graveface Museum, and I'm gonna bring you on in and show you a little bit about what we have in here.
What is he doing?
I don't know. All right. So because we're closed today, we all have to go through the tiny baby door. So follow me.
This is right up your alley, baby girl.
All right, so the museum is a true crime and oddities museum. We cover lots of different topics throughout recent history, ranging from cults and true crime to sideshow history, roadside attractions, the occult, and Satanism. So it's kind of an amalgamation of things that we've acquired over the years. Ryan specifically has collected in his many decades of acquiring things. So we're gonna head on in through the mouth of Satan and get everything started. So this room was built to emulate roadside attractions that were popular in the 40s and 50s. Big parts of roadside attractions have been animals, taxidermied, naturally occurring anomalies specifically. Clementine, for example, is a 5-legged cow. And then we have some 2-headed animals in the corner of the room. Little piglets are probably my favorite. And out of everything in the room, this might be my favorite piece in general. This is an adorable pair of lambs. They look like they're hugging because they were conjoined at the waist. So they didn't really have a choice. And yeah.
They look so fluffy and lovable.
I know, and I didn't actually know that lambs had really long tails when they were born. Yeah, they get sheared or they get cut off because they are easier to shear.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's a fun fact. But yeah, they were taxidermied in the 1850s, so very old piece of taxidermy.
Very neat.
And then on the flip side of the natural stuff, we have a bunch of gaffs. So all of these shrunken humanoid creatures were made by this guy named Homer Tate, who is a really prolific gaff artist. He was around in the 40s and 50s, mostly making stuff to sell to sideshows and roadside attractions. Fish Girl is a big highlight and a popular one in here. She was made with his wife's hair, his dead cat's teeth, and the arm of a mummified turtle. Homer Tate was a creative guy. He also ended his career very abruptly because he was actually caught digging up human remains to make shrunken heads. He was successful in this endeavor until he was arrested, so he did make a few shrunken heads. We do have a total of 3 shrunken heads in this room. Only one of them is real, though.
Oh,
I'll let you analyze and try to pick out what one is real.
So over here?
Correct.
So there's these 2 over here in the corner.
Correct. And then there's this little one over here with the really long hair.
Okay. Oh, come on.
Do you want me to tell you?
No. Okay, so, all right, so there's this guy here. Let's get a closer look at him. And these over here. Okay, I'm gonna say something.
Okay.
I watched an episode of a TV show where they talked about shrunken heads and how to tell.
Ooh, okay.
And I couldn't see any on there, so I don't know. But I remember them saying something along the lines of fake shrunken heads don't have ear holes or nose holes.
Yes.
Or something like that. But which one's real?
Well, so those are typical shrunken heads that are made from people that know what they're doing. This guy did his best. So this one was made with actual human remains before he was caught.
This one right here in the middle? Oh, hello.
Hello. So another thing worth mentioning in this room is all of the wood on the wall. This burnt wood came from a hoodoo house that was lived in by a lady. Her name was Ophelia Baker. She also went by the name Madame Truth because she was a really well-known psychic and fortune teller in Savannah in the early 1900s. So she passed away in the 70s, and her house sat abandoned for quite some time. Burnt down just a few years ago. Luckily, Ryan and I were able to rescue some of the wood from the property with the family's permission before it was just thrown away. So that's where this burnt wood came from. And then when we did some build outs in here, some things that we were seeing on the blueprint weren't lining up to what we were seeing in real life. So this little corner, we should have had a closet here, but we just saw an unfinished plywood wall. So we pried it off trying to find that closet, and I have a flashlight here. Ooh. So all of this stuff that's way back in here, that was left behind by somebody. We don't know exactly who left the stuff here. On city paper, the place was abandoned. And now obviously it wasn't set up like it is right now. We had somebody local who practices hoodoo set up like a little altar space using what was back there. So yeah, and people have left little trinkets and offerings since we've opened. So that's what the little shelf of goodies is.
Do you want to look in there, baby girl?
Do you want to look at it? You want to look at the hole in the wall? Everyone would. Everyone does.
Look at the little tiny duckies.
I know. People leave the cutest little offerings. Yeah.
Now, thank you guys. I was wondering where you went, Ryan. We want to thank you guys for opening this up on your day off. And I know this is going to sound like a commercial. All right. Trust me, this is not supposed to be like that. But we're taking basically the tour. You're giving us a tour that, like, anybody who comes here, this is what they'd be getting. More
or less, yeah. We're highlighting some stuff because this room we usually give some context because a lot gets missed, and then it's like a 50% guided, 50% not guided museum at this point. And
full disclosure, before we even started this, I said just pick out like 3 or 4 things. So just walking in this room, there are things everywhere to see.
And that's the thing. It's like we try to highlight a few things for as many people as possible, but other than what I'm just telling you about, there's a lot to dive into.
Right? I want to see more. Let's go see more.
Hell yeah. All right, so this room is the Anton LaVey exhibit. We just opened this in April of last year. So this is a very new exhibit. And this is actually all from Anton LaVey's grandson. So this is a very large display. It's the largest Satanic Church of Satan display currently.
This is insane.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, so this is all stuff that was like a range of things that were passed down to his grandson Stanton over the years, things that he had acquired and kept. We have some very interesting, like over here is a very life-like Anton LaVey sculpture. It was made by an artist in Canada, and that is exactly what Anton LaVey looked like.
You know, I knew that you guys had this, and I forgot that you had it, to be honest, but I remember whenever you guys put this on, I think you announced it on Instagram or social media that this was happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I don't think I'm ever going to get there to see it. And here we are.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So this is insane. So aside from the Anton LaVey likeness, which is incredible, it's like I'm standing here looking at him.
So to pick out a couple things that stand out to me, this case is probably the most heavy-hitting stuff. So this is a personal ashtray that Anton LaVey owned. It was in his house, the Black House. It was on California
Which we
Street.
actually did a video on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
But the fun little fact about this, they tore down the Black House. And it's a condo now.
Yes.
It's a 3-level condo, I think it is. And the first numbers of each of the house numbers go 666.
That's awesome.
Right? All right. So go back to it.
I love that. I did not know that. That's amazing. And then Anton's wife, Diane, she was the co-founder of the Church of Satan. We have a whole blurb on her. These are 2 medallions she made in the early days of the Church of Satan. And this is probably the most rare piece in here. This is a painting that Anton LaVey did when he was about 14 and 15 years old. Yeah. So it's and he wasn't known to be an artist. He wasn't a super prolific painter or anything.
He was an excellent musician.
He was a great musician, and he did doodle. We have some doodles actually at our other location in Chicago. We have a lot of stuff from Stanton that we had acquired over the years because Ryan had been friends with him for years, and this is just all the stuff that we decided with him to make a whole exhibit, a dedicated Anton LaVey definitive Church of Satan exhibit that's open to the public.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's one other thing I wanted to really highlight, and it's one of my favorite pieces, I think, in here. It's this very simple looking robe, but it was a robe that was worn by Diane in her Church of Satan days. It was worn at black masses. This is the actual garment on display. And then we also have some original photos that Stanton had kept over the years. That's Anton's wife, Diane. She was a badass. She actually did all of the kind of behind the scenes dealings of the church. So she answered all the letters from members and people that were joining, asking questions.
Right.
She edited all of his books and was just an awesome lady. And she passed away in just midsummer of last year, or 2022 rather. I keep forgetting it's 2024.
Right? Like, man, I'm bad with the
It's
dates.
tripping me. Yeah. So she passed away in mid 2022.
So I have to say this. I feel like we're walking through some sort of like decrepit basement.
That's what it feels like, yes.
Right?
Hopefully in the best way.
So where are we right now?
So we're in the Satanic Panic area. This is kind of the aftermath of the Church of Satan now, obviously public perception of what Anton LaVey did versus the reality. Not all the same. Obviously, he was an atheist, didn't actually worship the devil. These are all people that blamed doing terrible things on Satan, like David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, and Ramirez, and Robin Getch, the Chicago Ripper crew leader. So that is this little blurb. We also have a blurb on Damien Eccles and a little section for him. So then moving into here, we get into the Odd Fellows specifically, and they are a fraternal order that's pretty interesting. And do you know much about the Odd Fellows?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit.
So they formed in the 1700s in the UK originally. The IOOF is the International Order of the Odd Fellows. So that's what you'll see in the US. So any building that has those IOOF and like 3 interlock chains, that's an Odd Fellows building or lodge. And so they're just a fraternal order, charitable do-gooder basically, but they had a lot of really creepy imagery, and they used a ton of human remains in their rituals, or even just the imagery and iconography of death, skulls and crossbones. And there was a lot of the ideas with their initiations were facing your mortality to be a good person in this life and kind of force you to kind of reconcile with your ultimate demise. And so you'd have, like, this is a carved human skull that was part of the Odd Fellows rituals. Now they're a secret society. So what were they doing with this? I don't specifically know. And we've asked so many people that collect Odd Fellows stuff more about this. And this is actually the only one that we know to exist and that anybody we have met over the years that collects this kind of stuff has seen. So.
Well, that's the thing about like the Odd Fellows. Like you hear a name like that, you know the imagery, and if somebody doesn't know, it's like, okay, this is like some sort of like society that you don't want to mess with. And then the funny thing about that is, in almost every town I should say, there is an Odd Fellows cemetery. Yeah. So, I mean, they were pretty big.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, very big. Yeah, they're similar to like the Masons and, again, the fraternal order kind of stuff.
So in this room, aside from the skull, I have to ask, you got some stuff over here.
We do.
Can we talk about this guy?
Absolutely. So this is an articulated skeleton, not just any skeleton. This is Ryan's great-great-grandfather.
Ryan, your husband's?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So Grandpa works here. So this
Grandpa works here.
He seems to like it. But yeah, this is an example of what would happen. So a lot of Odd Fellows would donate their bodies to science, and then they would be repurposed later by the Odd Fellows. So you could wholesale purchase, basically as the lodge, human remains, but a lot of universities and, again, like doctors and stuff had some in with the Odd Fellows, and so that's how a lot of the people that were in the Odd Fellows made their way back to the lodges permanently as skeletons that were used in rituals, as opposed to just random ones. Now, some people use paper mache too, but yes, real human skulls are pretty common, and skeletons in general.
And there's faces up there on the wall?
Yeah, so during initiations, so let's put it in context a bit. This is an executioner robe. No, they weren't actually executing people. That was one of their initiations that would simulate a near-death experience. And a new initiate would be blindfolded, taken to an undisclosed location, stuck in this guillotine that looked really convincing. All of the people surrounding him, like these other people that were members of the lodge, would be wearing these masks that are very effective for disguising identity, surprisingly, but they look very scary. And then executioner would drop the guillotine, but it would stop before your neck.
I think one of the very first times, Ryan, are you around here?
Ryan,
Where are you at?
where'd he go?
And they're hiding. So we're talking about these masks in here.
Yeah.
And I just realized I had this weird flashback to, I think, one of the very first times that we met or hung out with you. You were wearing one of these masks, and it might have been a Marshmallow Ghost performance.
That makes
Sounds
He was
accurate.
probably wearing this robe too.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. The executioner
Yeah,
robe.
that's a regular Halloween costume
Well,
for Ryan.
I
This
used
whole
to trick
thing.
or treat in this one.
Yes.
That was my trick or treat.
I think that's the pretty lady mask.
because one of them has you can this wire. It would cut into the sides of my head when I would trick or treat.
Yeah, so the fishing line that it's actually like hung by, that's not what we did to display it. That was just Ryan's like,
Go-to mask.
yeah, his go-to mask
I
that he just
love
hung
it.
up.
And yeah, this is why we're all friends.
It just makes sense.
Say hi to Grandpa.
We added my relatives' paintings too.
That's really good.
That's the definition of keeping it in the family.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more over here too.
I mean, they're not good, but they're his.
Now, before we move to the next location, we're passing these beautiful pinball machines. And one of the beautiful things about this place, when you come here and you see a bunch of creepy stuff, you can actually play some creepy pinball machines. Now, this one right here is Elvira and the Party Monsters. Now, we have a story, don't we, Baby Ghoul?
We do.
So tell the viewers about us and this pinball machine.
One of our first correspondences, if you will,
Like way before we even met.
way before we ever met, kind of what catapulted us into becoming friends, is that you had posted on Instagram about playing an Elvira pinball machine, and I grew up playing the exact same machine, and I had commented under your post about my story and everything, and that really was our very first, I went back and looked, I dug it up, our first ever contact with each other was over an Elvira pinball machine. Not this one, but so it's always something that's in our hearts. Every time I see it, I get a little...
And then many years later, we have this crazy thing called the Grimm Life.
Yeah?
Now, at the end of this hallway
My other
that we're
favorite.
walking down right now, I'm going to turn the camera so you guys can see this. There is a giant house, Baby Ghoul. This house wasn't here the last time that we came to visit.
was
They
not.
built this. And I know what's inside. You guys don't, but you're going to see it in just a moment. This is nuts. These people are nuts.
So before we get to the house, we'll have some more lighthearted stuff before the really gross stuff. And these are all, this is our Sideshow exhibit. So we have a lot of incredible old photos from and CDVs from various Sideshow performers over the years. Probably my favorite area is this whole Captain Don exhibit. He was a sword swallower, fire breather, human pincushion. He did everything. He was the one-stop Sideshow basically. And he was also a very fun artist. These are some of his banners that he painted himself, of himself, and just some really unique things that you don't really get to see from some Sideshow performers, as you know, a lot of this isn't preserved super well. And then, like I mentioned, the gross stuff. This whole exhibit is deep diving on the Ed Gein exhibit. So, or deep diving on the Ed Gein case. So you know who Ed Gein is.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
So we've actually went and did a big video on it.
Okay.
And last time we were here, this was in a separate area.
Yes.
And there were some things that you guys had that just blew me away.
Yes.
And then I walk in, now you have a whole house
We made a house
built.
for it.
His
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Oh God, okay.
So we recreated loosely his house. So the first floor, because what we were noticing when the exhibit, it was much smaller scaled. We hardly displayed a fraction of what we had up when the true crime room when you were in here
Right.
last. So we expanded on the stuff that we do have. And then we also were noticing a lot of people, there was still a lot of fuzziness and misconceptions like involved in the case. So a lot of people interpret things from Psycho and things from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as the reality of the Ed Gein case, when that's just not what happened.
Look
So
at
there's
you
a lot
guys.
of misconceptions that were kind of debunked on the first floor. So it's going to be like walking through an over-the-top gross horror movie set that was inspired by Ed Gein. It is a lot of, again, very gruesome stuff that you'll see, and we're going to go through misconceptions, and then upstairs we're going to go through the reality of the case with the real exhibit and artifacts.
Now, real quick, before we go in there, I don't know what to expect, but I will say this. They had to go inside there by themselves and turn something on. And so, I'm trying to prepare myself. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
There's a lot happening in here. So we'll go through a couple different things. The first main misconception that we would hear over the years was that Ed Gein made stuff out of human remains, specifically lampshades, though. No evidence that we can actually point to. We have all of these transcripts from the guy who did all the polygraphs with him and interviews. We have a lot of lists of what they did find in his house. In that was not lampshades. So we do have a lampshade over here, and then there's one on the fridge behind you, but that's the cooler looking one.
So wait.
So he did not, there's no evidence of him making lampshades out of people. Not to mention...
So this is just something that was created?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first...
I was like, wow.
So the first floor, yeah, it's all the like misconceptions. These are all props that were made with Ed Gein in mind, specifically the misconceptions that spun up around him.
Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah, and so this is a nice silicone face lamp. And yeah, so his house, not to mention, didn't have electricity, so he wasn't needing to make lampshades for the lamps he didn't own and couldn't use, even if he really, really wanted to. So that is one misconception number one. This is a chair. This does ride the line of fact and fiction. There were 2 chairs taken out of his house. Both of them were made using human remains. They did not look anything like this. They didn't have hair and noses and faces on them. They just looked like normal chairs. When we go upstairs, I will try to remember to point out the photo with the actual chairs in them, because we do have an original evidence photo. And then the mannequin touches on a couple of things.
This is Warden, right?
To a degree. We had to tone it down a lot. Like you get the idea enough. The only similarities, because the state that she was found in was much more gruesome and terrible. The only similarities were the removal of genitalia, which actually did happen. However, the removal of the nipples, that is our nod to the nipple belt. That is 100% fiction. It did not exist. And upstairs, we'll go through why there were so many misconceptions about the case in a little bit more detail.
Gotcha,
Yes.
gotcha.
So coming up the stairs, you're seeing some really gnarly crime scene photos, and those are all Chicago mob hits, and they do tie into this case in a really interesting way. So the guy who took all of these photos coming up the stairs was this fellow. His name was Joe Wilimowski. He's the guy who later in his career became the polygraph expert for the Wisconsin Crime Lab. He did every single interview with Ed Gein, got confessions out of him, of course did his polygraph tests. So we have all their transcripts, and that's how we're able to verify some of the things that actually were pulled out of the house and the things that were happening, and versus ruling out some things that weren't, of course.
Can I just say that, like, walking through the museum, I was like, okay, like, this is a museum. This is a museum. Walking through an actual house is a different level. Like, I feel like I'm on, like, some sort of, like, horror MTV Cribs. Like, so...
Welcome to my crib.
Yeah, welcome to my crib. What else I got here? So, continue.
Yes. So Joe Wilimowski and his brother Alan, he also worked the Gein case. He was a ballistics expert, but the two of them combined is how we actually have everything that you're seeing in this room. These documents, photos, and artifacts from the case came about through their estates collectively.
Okay.
And so this is that photo I was going to point out. These 2 photos, I will mention, that is an original photo of evidence. That's a bunch of human bone fragments that were found on Gein's property. It looks like nothing when you're far away, but zoomed in, it's pretty intense. And then this is all the evidence that was taken out of his house. It was put in bags and processed at the Wisconsin Crime Lab. Those were the 2 little chairs that were taken out of his house, found to be made using human skin. So they just, again, look like normal chairs, not like the one we had downstairs, of course. So that evidence was processed, and nothing immediately went to trial because Gein was not competent to stand trial right off the bat. He was criminally insane, so they put him in an institution for about 10 years. Then, in 1968, the case finally goes to trial, but they acquit him of every single crime except for one murder, which was the murder of Bernice Warden. Behind you are some pretty nasty crime scene photos of how she was found. Then that's the prosecutive summary of the case, coroner's report. But in a nutshell, that's what went to trial, nothing else, because when they got all this evidence, nobody had a search warrant. They didn't need one in the case of Bernice because they were trying to find her. They grabbed all this other stuff, which they totally weren't able to. So they weren't able to legally use it in the trial. Not to mention they'd already drug the case out for like 10 years. So it was kind of a matter of like, let's just get this done. And that's what happened. So what happens to the inadmissible evidence? They burn it, including the evidence photos. Which is why if you hop on Google right this second and you search Ed Gein evidence, it's not like you won't see anything. You'll see stuff. It's just all stuff that was made using like the inspiration of Ed Gein, but it's
Yeah.
mostly silicone and special effects, no different than what we have downstairs.
So this is a question to put to
Yes.
both you and Ryan. I have never been around anybody or seen an article or read anything that has accumulated so much about Gein. Like, this is
Yeah.
insane.
This is
it.
this is the only public display of Ed Gein artifacts, like actual artifacts from the case. Because there's just not much
nothing
left,
exists.
really. We were shocked that this existed, and it was just
There's a museum in Vegas that pretends they have a cauldron or something like that, but I was at that auction, and the auctioneer stated that it might be Gein's because it was from the same city, but that is not proof that it was Gein's at all. Other than that, there's nothing. I mean, some people have like he mailed some letters, and so there's some cutesy stuff, but pertaining to the
actual
case
case.
and some of the gruesome stuff that doesn't exist. I mean, the pictures behind you have never been published. Like,
Correct.
we should probably write a book, quite frankly.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Now, can I ask a question? It might sound like a stupid question, but I'm actually genuinely, I can't say the word,
Genuine.
curious. When it comes to his house burning down, what's your take on that?
Well, the city some people in the city definitely burned his house
Like,
down.
do you think it was like,
it was an intentional arson?
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% arson.
Likely because
Yeah.
they knew that it was right before the auction that was going to take place at his property.
right?
It was the night before they burned it down.
They weren't looking
They-
for a spectacle.
No, they didn't want it to become a tourist
So you think it was like
attraction.
the townsfolk that did it?
Yes. Yeah, nobody
Okay.
was charged with arson, but it was arson.
Gotcha.
So
gotcha.
it was more of a like, oops, okay, well,
Not
Oh,
even,
well.
Not even a question.
yeah. Yeah. Also, he wasn't technically a serial killer because he did kill 2 women, not 3 or more. But I do think that, personally, I think he did kill his brother, Henry. I don't know
think
if you
he killed
guys
his
have...
brother, but I believe there's probably other
Probably.
things too. But the brother would be the obvious
Yes.
choice.
That's a lot of people believe that one. There's one thing I always like to highlight in this room specifically because the evidence was, of course, destroyed that we know of, and there's one living piece of human remain evidence of him making stuff out of people's remains that actually has survived, and it's in this room. It's this little piece of hair. It's a keychain, and it was given to Alan Wilimovsky. I don't know why he kept it, but he did. So it was not destroyed because it was never cataloged as evidence. And it has Ed Gein's name. He wrote his address. On the back is the Shell service station, which happened to be right across the street from where Bernice Warren was actually murdered. And we unfortunately don't know exactly whose hair it is. It could have been a grave robbing victim's, of course.
Right.
So I kind of lean toward it might be his mom's hair. And, you know, he was obsessed with her as a way of coping with her abuse. All the victims looked like or resembled her, reminded him of her in some capacity. So if it is his mom's hair, that means that is the first thing ever made out of human remains because we know it was taken post-mortem. There's still scalp attached to it. So if that is the case, that's disturbing on many levels. But
Right?
yeah. And his mom did actually she had long dark hair and yeah.
And the fact that this even exists, and
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's behind glass, so I mean, I can't touch it, but I'm guessing that you guys have touched this,
Yeah.
have like, that's,
Well, it's funny because nobody knows whose hair it was.
Right.
So when we received this stuff, I remember Ryan had already gotten everything out and was like playing with the papers and looking through stuff. And he asked if I wanted to hold the hair. And my first thought was, I think it's his mom's hair. And he said to that, I thought the exact same thing the first time I held it.
Wow.
So that was interesting. And, you know, fast forward now, we've had this museum for a while now. We've had this exhibit live for a couple years. And there was just a family from Wisconsin that came in and from around the area, but one guy actually knew about the hair because the tour guide was telling him about. He's like, "Oh, I know about that because my grandparents always told me he carried a lock of his mom's hair around with him." Before the tour guide even got to telling them about this hair, he was just like, "I didn't know I would ever see that." She's like, "How did you know it existed?"
I got chills.
So that was interesting to kind of corroborate, and specifically that it was his mom's hair he was carrying around. So that was interesting, and yeah, little stories and whatnot. Again, there's plenty of them, but okay, we're in the cult and true crime area now. So there are a lot of cult-related stuff that you'll probably recognize through recent history of the Manson family. Jonestown, Heaven's Gate. So Heaven's Gate is very fascinating. We've become actually really close friends with Sawyer, who is an ex-member. He's where we got some of this stuff. And so we try to, again, acquire a lot of stuff from just meeting people who were directly impacted and tied to these different cases, people and things. So a lot of interesting stories come along with them. And the flip side of the Heaven's Gate cult stuff, we have Jonestown, and probably the Flavor Aid packs are the most heavy-hitting thing in here, in my opinion. They're one of those just innocuous, small...
That's these right up here.
Yeah, so those were taken from Jonestown, from the scene, by a member of the military who was there at the cleanup, and again, they're just something you would look at and think, out of context, this is just garbage, and meanwhile, they're tied to something so much bigger.
Now, that's Jim.
That's paper mache Jim.
The paper mache Jim.
But those are actually his glasses. So he would carry an extra pair of glasses around with him and give them as like gifts and calling cards to mostly ladies that he would find attractive. So those came about through a person who lives in Savannah whose aunt was a member of the People's Temple who received a pair of those glasses. And that was is one of those, again, little things that we didn't know that little part, but that's an interesting story.
Again, another example why we're all friends here.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we did a video on the church that when it was in Los Angeles, but I have to ask, which one of you two has put on the glasses?
I mean, I do all the time.
You do all the time.
So, do you remember, should I tell them about when they disappeared into a vortex?
Wait, what?
The glasses. So before we had the museum, we would travel with some of these items, just do pop-up galleries and...
Yeah.
That's how we
really got...
raise capital to build it.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Right,
yeah.
because we had some of this stuff and it was just, we travel around the country with it. And the glasses would come on the road with us, of course. They would always be in this little baggie that we got them in originally that says Father Jones 1960, bubble wrapped and put with all the other stuff. So there would be months between different shows and we were packing for one and Ryan said, "Did you see the Jim Jones glasses?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw them. They were in this box that I packed them into at the last event. Let me go grab them." They weren't there. I went through all, because we had probably 4 or 5 boxes. I went through every single one of them, like emptied them out, dumped out little bags of stuff, and I did not find them. So then, and this is in Ryan's office area, so limited space, that's the only place I would go. However, I searched our warehouse, our house, the store, the record store, and his office again, couldn't find them. And then weeks go by, and it was eating away at me.
Well,
and
we were also fighting.
we were also, because he was like, "You lost them. They're irreplaceable."
I wasn't happy.
No, and also the guy that we got them from, we didn't like. He wasn't trying to sell them. Like technically, those are just on loan.
Yeah, we didn't pay a penny.
No,
because he wants them to be seen.
Yeah, he thought it was a cool story that should be shared, and that was before we even had the museum. You had those in the record store, so yeah, we were. It was bugging me so much, and you were annoyed. I was mad and frustrated, and I went to look for them again, and they were on top of a box inside of a clown hat that you also we were traveling around. I was tied into this, but it was right there. I didn't go through anything. I have no clue, but that was the box that I remember them being in. So where the hell they went, I don't know, but I found them, and I thought that he was fucking with me and brought them back.
I think my anger for like weeks on end was proof that I wasn't fucking.
Yeah, I don't actually, but at first I was like, "Oh, you found them? Why didn't you tell me?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "They're right there. We went through this box. You were with me." Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened, but
But you said they were on a box of a clown.
yes.
Now, is this the same clown where you have his ashes? Is that who you're talking
Yeah, it
about?
actually was.
Because he had a little hat.
Yeah, he had a hat, and it was really like, I was a hard clown hat, so it was really protective. That's why I put them in there, and I remember that, and I remember seeing the clown hat when I was looking for them.
Yeah,
and
so it was the corpse of a clown
Yep.
was
housing.
Jim.
Yeah, and at some point they went into a little vortex and hung out. I don't know. Bathroom.
Quick context about this clown that we're just talking about. In the video, I think it was the very first video we've ever done with you guys, we talk about this clown and this display, and I'm going to show you some of that footage now. So that's kind of interesting how everything kind of just goes full circle.
This might be the greatest thing on earth. There was this clown in the 50s named Durwood Belmont Adams. This is his hat and nose from the 50s. He passed in 2007, so I have his hat and nose and his cremated remains in this box here, which, you know, probably isn't that interesting to a certain group of people, but I'm obsessed with clowns, so to think I have some of his trajectory, so to speak, delights me in a bizarre way.
And if you're watching this video, you probably already know who John Wayne Gacy is. So behind this door, we have the world's largest collection of John Wayne Gacy artifacts. They range from paintings and art and letters that he did on death row that we've acquired from pen pals to more personal items that we got from his younger sister. So the reason we ended up with so much stuff in the first place is Ryan has been working on a documentary for the past like 10 years. He's obsessed with the case, has been since I met him. So we've been turning everything we know into documentary form because there's just a lot of things that were glossed over in the initial investigation and a lot of stones left unturned, pointing to, you know, other victims and victims in other states, and a lot of questions that were brought up over the years that we actually have some case altering information on. But I'll let him talk more about that with you guys, and we can head in and kind of look at the artifacts themselves if you want to head in.
Yeah. So just like the house downstairs, this is like walking into
This is like walking, pretty much. And actually, the first thing that you're landing on is a scale model of his own property. That's his house that the victims were buried under. He built that in prison over the course of 3 months. So he built that himself in prison, out of cigar boxes, popsicle sticks, yarn. Everything was cut with a tuna can lid. So yeah, it took 3 months to make. So the reason that's super interesting, obviously, is the only one that exists. And the guy that we got it from is a fellow who we've picked up on a lot of his research and, you know, been able to piece together a lot of the puzzle from knowing him and getting to know him and talk to him.
So this is it.
This is it.
I mean, this is like the darkest, spookiest dollhouse I've ever seen. But something that sticks out to me is the pictures of clowns in each room. Did he actually have?
He cut out from magazines and books, and but yeah, there were a lot of clowns in his house, in his actual house, and he put a clown in every single room.
I love his plants.
Yeah. What's crazy is that guest room up there with the bed. It almost looks like a little blood stain on there. I don't know. Again, how much of that is intentional, I don't know. But Gacy, we know, is a very meticulous person. He's super, super OCD about everything. Very little is an accident in the Gacy realm.
Wow.
So that is a very, very heavy piece. But he also built it to withstand his weight for some reason. There's an actual photo of him standing on it. I don't know why, but
odd, strange.
Yeah. And if you've seen any Gacy paintings, you kind of know the style. This is a very unique piece. And it was done for his sister Karen. So we actually got that directly from her. The prompt was, he was sending her 7 dwarf paintings and she didn't want them. She was like, they're kind of creepy. My kids don't want them. I don't want them. Send me something I could actually hang up in my house. So then this shows up in the mail. It's actually a really nice still life. Now, he did copy some step-by-steps over the years out of books and whatnot. So likely it was a kind of step-by-step process. But what is worth noting is the reflection over here. It almost looks like prison bars.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that was done in 1983. So also before he started mass kind of producing art, because in the early 80s, it wasn't a big thing to collect death row artwork from Gacy or any other person.
So Gacy painted that.
Correct.
And what's really interesting, and I'm just going to say this because if somebody's watching and they don't make the connection, almost every Gacy picture I've ever seen always has like this childlike feel to it.
Yes.
This is the first time I've ever seen something where you can actually see like the art.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like the calmness in the hand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's technically well done. So what you're seeing in this area are all of the paintings that he was doing on death row, except this was one that was hanging in his house. There's a photo of it in that. It's that little piece of
right down
little
here?
corner. Yep.
That's
So that's that exact painting that was hanging up in his bar room.
Wow. Yeah, like right there.
Yeah. So that was the only one that he didn't paint that's on display in this room. Everything else were paintings that he did while he was in prison. This is how he paid for his appellate attorneys, because over the years, that was what kept him on death row for so long. He was filing appeals. using money he made from painting to pay for lawyers. So that was what prompted a lot of that in the first place. And then on the note of his sister, this is probably one of the most important things that we got from her. So this is Gacy's logbook from prison. He kept track of every 5 to 15 minutes he was on death row. That's from when he woke up, what he ate, who he mailed stuff to. That's the last 2 days of his life. So everything right up to his death. But prior to that, he lists and logs paintings, people he's communicated with, very important like information just pertaining to the appeals and attorneys and whatnot. So that we've used in conjunction with the research that we've already started. So we've been building off of in the past few years since we've acquired that. And that was really helpful because, and I mentioned the documentary that we were working on. So some of the things that don't quite add up are the victims. There are still 5 unidentified victims to this day. These photos are just all the ones that are currently identified. So there are 33 victims total, and only 5 of them still don't have names. So we do have some leads on who a couple of the victims actually might be. That's one of the many things that we're kind of working toward. And then on that note too, most of the victims were buried under Gacy's house in his crawl space. So this we built very recently. This was not here last time you were here, but this we built to scale. The dimensions of the crawl space entryway, they've been debated over the years whether or not he could actually fit in there himself, because there are a lot of, he was a big guy, and a lot of people had theorized that there were accomplices over the years, which we actually have some proof to back up at this point. And one of the many things that amounts to, these accomplices and the idea that there were some, was the width of his crawl space was actually not this whole entire floor space. This photo was an original evidence photo that was taken after the detectives took out the entire floor around the crawl space. So that's when they lifted it up, used it as evidence. This is what remained. But what's important to note is these support beams coming here and here, that was the width of the crawl space. It was about 16 to 18 inches. So he was about 5'9", 240 pounds. So it was smaller than I thought it was. We have this in conjunction with the whole crawl space setup. So we did make this interactive, so it's, you can get right up in there and look at it.
Interactive, so people can actually climb down up inside there.
So so this is what it looks like, and I'm not 240 pounds, but this width and this width, that's the width that he was fitting through, basically. It would be difficult, if not impossible, with his, size, basically. Right. So that's one thing worth noting, and basically why we built it, just to give people a tangible, so you can see it yourself. We wanted to see it ourselves because we were just curious.
This is brilliant. What you folks have done here is just it's mind blowing. Some people might think, hey, you come here and it's this museum and you get your picture taken, this, but you're actually teaching people. You're informing people. I mean, you're bringing awareness to things.
For sure.
And one of the things I love the most about this is, you hear these stories. Mm-hmm. You know these stories, you know these nightmares, you know these monsters. And whenever we do our videos, the thing that I've learned is once you actually experience it, or once you actually put your feet there, once you can see it, touch it, put yourself in its surroundings, that's how you really learn. So
it is, for sure.
Much respect, much respect.
And this, again, it's more, just to get people, interacting and actually actively learning. And let me get out of here. It's creepy. So that's why we built that, and we do, have the dimensions of the crawl space. Of course, we got those from talking to the prosecutor, because I think I mentioned they're not public record, but that is how we ended up getting them before Bill Kunkel passed away, luckily.
And there's our 2 friends over there, Cohorton, my wife and your husband.
Cohorton.
Being creepy.
Just creeping.
Much respect, much respect.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like we said at the very beginning of this video, Savannah has a very special place to both Jessica and I, the friends that we made there, and the creepier, the stranger side of Savannah that is off the beaten path, like Graveface Museum. And I am completely blown away of this place. The last time that we were here, there's a video, and if you haven't watched that, watch that one. It's going to be also in the description of this video, this one here that you're watching. But when we visited last time, it was insane. It was the amount of stuff here. We talked with Ryan. This time we got to talk with his wife, and it's just next level. I've never seen a museum like this.
Even the first edition was mind-blowing. and we'd never seen a museum quite like that. Now that you guys have improvised on it and improved some things and added to it, if you're watching and you want to visit this place, comfortable shoes, hydrate. You're going to be here for a long time taking everything in.
And yeah, we kind of ran through looking at a lot of the highlights, but there are things everywhere, right? Truly everywhere. And wow. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure. Until next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.